Alrighty, so welcome to another video, and this is going to be a part of the Easy 4x4 maintenance series. Today we're going to do a wheel bearing. We're going to do both sides, but we're going to start with the driver's side. So I was on the highway yesterday coming home from work, and I felt a vibration, a bit of a wobble at certain speeds. As I decelerate, I felt a kind of a grindy, rocky rumble. So that indicates to me wheel bearings. Got home when the wheel was still hot, gave the tyre a shake, and it was wobbly from up to down, so this way to that way. So it's solid in the turning axis, but in the upwards and downwards axis, it was a bit wobbly. So I'll jack that up in a minute, and we'll see if we can replicate the wobble. What you're going to need, obviously, some wheel bearings and some high temp wheel bearing grease. Oh, focus up. Yeah, some high temperature wheel bearing grease. Other stuff you're going to need is obviously basic hand tools to undo all the bits that you're going to need to get undone. You're going to need a jack to get the car up. You're also going to need, well, you might not need this, but you might want it. Excuse all my mess. But you're probably going to want some gloves, which I've got buried away in that pile of crap. You're going to want some zip ties to hold the caliper up. And you're also going to want some paper towels to clean up the oil. Sorry, not oil, the grease. So yeah, first thing we're going to do, crack the wheel nuts, jack the car up. And actually, I might jack the car up first, and we'll see if we can see that wobble that I'm talking about. Okay, so generally, I've got the car, the driver's side jacked up. If a wheel bearing is really bad, when you spin it, you'll be able to hear something. So in this case, there's not much sound while you're going slow like this. Most of that sound's just the caliper on the rotor, brake pads on the rotor, so that's pretty normal. But what isn't normal is if we get it here, you can, it's hard to show on video, but see how that's wobbling? That should be pretty rigid. And you can see it's not. So it's probably a loose bearing inside there. So put it back down, we'll crack these wheel nuts. We'll take it off, take the wheel off, and maybe I can show on the rotor, when I shake the rotor, the movement a little bit better. Alright, it's a bit dark in here, so I just got a little camping light. But it's real hard to see. But if you can hear that, a little bit of movement where there shouldn't be. Yeah, it's hard to show, but yeah, that bearing isn't great. So we'll start taking off the hub. Behind that, there's a split pin and stuff. We'll take all that off, take the caliper off, and then we'll take the whole hub assembly out. Alrighty, so you get the caliper off, two 19mm bolts to hold the caliper on. You don't want to take out these slider bolts because we're not trying to take the caliper apart. We're not doing brakes right now. And then just zip tie it to the upper control arm so she doesn't fall and put stress on this hose. Next, we are going to dive into taking the hub out. So there's a few little bits in here. You're going to need either two flatheads to get the split pin at the front out, or a split pin tool, which I've got. Makes life a whole lot easier. So yeah, we're going to take all that out. There's a couple of bits. What I like to do is lay it out in order on a paper towel on how it came out of here, and that just saves any issues with putting it back in the wrong order. So we'll do that now. I'll take everything out. I'm only one-handed, so I'm going to have to do it and then just show you afterwards, but I'll show you and tell you how I did it. First thing, little split pin goes on there. Split pin removal tool, screwdriver. So that's the first one. Next, I believe it's just a little washer spacer. Can be a bit tricky. Just get in there. Gotta get under it. Just just get it off. That goes over there. So we're putting them in order of how they came out. Next, two little, there's flatheads, but they're also an 8mm. Sorry, Phillips heads. So see if this will get it. Nope. Hang on. One-handed is joy. So take that off. Sorry, I'm just swapping out my impact. So see if that'll get it. Yep, that got it. So get that off there. Sorry about the camera work. One-handed is not ideal. Two little Phillips heads. So what I like to do is put them either side of that washer, so you know that's where they came out. So that's that. So now there's a spinner. So, oh wait, I use a little flat head. Yep, this one here. I might have already just been holding that, can't remember. I start to spin it. Oh, hang on, nope. Skipped a step, there's a plate. So that comes off in order. Now this is where you spin it. So you find a hole and yeah, spin this off. Ooh. Try not to use one of the threaded holes that the Phillips heads were sitting in. I'm pretty sure they're all though. They all can be. So there's that. And now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this one-handed, but this whole hub will come off now. So that's completely loose. So I can take that off and we can look at the bearing. Alrighty, there it is. So, taking the hub assembly off the axle. I guess this is a stub axle is what they call them. This is connected directly to the knuckle. So all that is one assembly. That is the CV axle. So I cleaned up this surface on the stub axle. And you can see here, I mean my lighting's terrible. Let me move the light closer. You can see there, it has been getting hot. And that looks like on the inner bearing potentially. So what we're going to do is we'll take our hub assembly over to the bench and we'll get a better look at it because it's very dark where I'm working. All the lights are all over there and I'm kind of in the bit that doesn't have light. But it's raining outside, so I need to do it inside today. I'd normally do this job in the driveway, hence the channel's name. But anyway, clean that up, we'll re-grease everything. So while we're here, we're getting rid of all the old grease and we're going to put new grease in. That's should be pretty standard procedure. The actual hub, I'm not going to re-grease because I've done that quite recently. I'll clean all them up, new grease. Yeah, ready to go. Let's take this over to the bench and have a closer look. Alrighty, so here we are on the bench. So that's the outer bearing. Let's have a look. So just pop out. Sort of visually, not much going on. I'll get two hands. I mean, there is a bit of play in there. Not amazing. When you're doing all this too, try not to touch your rotor with your greasy hands. It'll just save you a bit of cleaning later on. And this is your inner bearing with a bearing seal. So we'll take the bearing seal off. I can't do this one-handed, so that rubber seal we're just going to butcher off. So we're going to get a flathead and just get it off. Try not to damage any of the surrounding surfaces, and then we're going to have a look at that bearing in there. So they're Koyo Japan, which is the stock bearings likely. So I mean these have likely been on there for the last 20-ish years. This outer bearing is not. Oh, Japanese NSK. So that one has likely been changed. Could be the stock. They do use Japanese bearings from the factory. This one I suspect is the stock one. So let's have a look. Alrighty, so I've removed the old seal. Got the new seal here. They match up perfectly. Bearings look like they match up perfectly. Yep. So that's that one. And then that's that one. Now we've got to get out these braces. I just tend to smack them out. But we'll see how we go. Bearings visually don't look too bad, but I'll see when I get the other ones out of the packets to see how similar they are. Okay, hopefully I don't completely block this. But yeah, you go into the corners, smack. just working around. Just like that. So it can be pretty stubborn. But yeah, you get those races out. You can see I hardly damaged it. You can see, hang on. You can see all these score marks. So they had to come out. A lot of people don't pull them out. Just reuse the old ones, but I'll show you. If you know what you're looking at, these have been in there a long time, and you've got to remember bearing is spinning very quick, and you can see there's lots of little score heating. They need to be replaced. So there's one out, flip it over, and then I'll get the outer one out. Same thing. Oh, sorry. Same thing. Let's have a look at that surface. Yes, exactly. Actually, this one's worse. Look at the score. Oh, I don't know if you can see that. Oh. Oh, focus up. So yeah, look at the scoring on that one. So that's caked. So you have to replace these. I don't care what you say, do it. Don't be lazy. So we got them out. Your new ones, your new bearings. See, we'll have new ones. So let's install them. Alrighty, races are in. So what I do generally is I like to get a socket that'll fit around the outside. So on that outside lip of the race, and then smack the shit out of it. It has to go in evenly so you don't damage the outer diameter of the wall. And it needs to go all the way in. But once they're seated, that's all good. Then you got to grease the bearings. So I do it the old school way. I don't buy the little tool that does it. So how do I show you? Oh, hang on. Sorry. So I get my palm, fill it full of grease. So get my palm full of grease. Now get the new bearing on this side, and you just start doing that. That's how you traditionally pack a bearing, and you can see it's starting to come through the actual bearing. So you just kind of work your way around. It does take some time, but it also does work. So that's how you traditionally pack a bearing. So you do that to all the new bearings, and yeah, you'll be laughing. Once your bearings are nice and packed, grease the shit out of the inner diameter of that hub. I kind of broke my rules a little bit. I've touched the rotor. So before that rotor goes on, it's going to need a good brake clean, because that grease will ruin your brake pads. So yeah, grease the shit out of that inner hub. Make sure your bearings are nice and packed. Don't forget to put on your cap, your seal. Should be pretty well on. And yeah, so that's in there now. So that'll all pressure fit once I put all the bits back in. I will get a bit of wood and smack that on properly just to be sure. That'll do. So just chuck a bit of wood on there, something nice and flat, and just make sure she's well and truly seated, which she is. Yep, lovely. So that's just the seal to stop grease coming out. And then flip it over, more grease. I cannot express enough, just pack as much grease as you can into this hub. You want it to be greased before you put the hub back on the snub axle. Grease the shit out of that as well, and you'll be laughing. So now it's putting it all back together. So reverse of what we did. This is a messy job. I said to wear gloves. I couldn't find my gloves in my pile of shit, so I didn't wear them. Rookie move. Should probably look for them, especially before I do that brake rotor. But yeah. Reverse of what we did. Make sure you pack the bearings. Make sure you replace the racers. And yeah, that's all good. Righty, so you got the snub axle nice and greased up. Plenty of grease in there. I'm going to pretty well pack it with grease as I'm putting it on, because I want that pretty well full of grease. And then yeah, it all goes back together. And given those a good clean, I'll give them another spray just before they go on, and wipe them down as I'm putting them on. Alright, back into the low light. But yeah, so that is the racers replaced, new bearings packed, new grease, new seal on the back. So that is now on. So I put on the outer bearing, so the bearing at the back on before I fit, because obviously you got to get the seal on. But then I put the hub assembly on and then press the inner bearing. Sorry, other way around. Outer bearing, inner bearing. Put the inner bearing on first, get the outer bearing on as after I put the hub assembly onto the snub axle. And yeah, so it's nice and good now. So I'll put all that back clean all that up, put it all back together. So that's the order it goes in. That's the one that threads on, that locks the thread. Those nuts hold the thread locker. Then you got a washer, and then the split pin holds the washer in. Lovely. I'll put all that back in, and then you put your hub back on. I'll clean up the rotor again, just to get any grease off it. Then I'll put the caliper back on, and then turn the ute around. Or give the wheel a shake, make sure it all feels good. Then turn the ute around, and do the other side. Alrighty, that's all back together. And you can see, it's gone. There's no more of that wibbly wobbly. So I'll get some brake cleaner, clean up the rotor. Actually, I'll put this back together first. So I'll put the hub back on, and then I'll clean the rotor just before I put the caliper on. But next thing you're going to see, it's all back together. Then we'll spin around, do the exact same thing on the other side, see if there's anything I missed. But that should be about it. So I will put all this back together, show you it all back together, show you the wheel's good again, then do the other side. Alrighty, back together. Spins, no movement at all. So when you do stuff like this, always check your bolts. That's from that. Always check your bolts. You know, so I put all my bolts in one spot. You should never have leftover bolts. No matter what you're doing, never ever have a leftover bolt. When I rebuilt the engine, no leftover bolts. If you've left out a bolt, it could be catastrophic. So always double check that everything is back where it should be. In this case it is. Let's put the wheel on. Alright, job done. Wobble is gone. So hopefully that helps someone somewhere at some point. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to flip the ute around, do the other side. But you don't need to see that. You just watch me do this. So if you can think of anything I left out, let me know. This is obviously for the spline style CV. There's another one that has a threaded CV. Similar process. It's just got a bolt that holds on the CV and a split pin. Apart from that, most of the rest is the same. The hub and the actual bearings are the same. This is pretty common, universal among many four-wheel drives. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoy this sort of video, remember to subscribe and like, leave a comment. Findog out.